Hey guys, it's Ariel Baruch and Tracy Amadi from Syracuse Studio. Kidney function and kidney treatment, kidney disease and kidney treatment, and then our main portion of show today will be devoted to healthy kidney diet, and Alicia Prezzanchi is gonna dive into it and go into details. So I'm Tracy. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tracy Amadi. I am a two-timer on dialysis. My first time was 5 years, and I received a live kidney transplant, donor, and I was dialysis free for 7 years. Then I ended up with a bowel obstruction, and it knocked out the remaining kidney function. So I'm back on dialysis. I am a home hemodialysis patient. I am using Tableau, and I'm quite active. Tableau's new on the scene, but people need to know more information about it. But the last two shows that we had was a couple of months ago, and we first talked about the kidney function, what the kidney does, the importance of nutrition. And then the second show was the various types of dialysis. We have PD, which is a catheter in the abdomen. Then we have home hemo. And then we also have end stage dialysis treatment. So it just educate the viewers of the options that they have in center. It's not the only option that there is. And just educate the audience so that if they know more information, they can make more sound decisions about their care if they end up on dialysis.
Great. So Tracy, thank you for introduction. And I just want to add something about Tracy. I met her several months ago, and she's very conservative. She's actually extremely active in her community. She's doing a lot of different things, and many people would kind of get in going through all these difficulties with the health and dialysis and kind of being essentially limited in what people can do. She's extremely active. She's working with the youth at her house of worship. She is volunteering at the food pantry. She has a part-time job. She is active. She's come to Syracuse TV studio to do different shows on a different subjects, and she's an inspiration for a lot of people who may end up in a situation like this. But her optimism and her she's really striving to kind of be essentially exemplary person, what I would say. So Tracy, it's very happy to have you.
Thank you very much.
Finally, we met in person. We did a couple of shows together, and I'm very happy to finally meet her in person. So I'm gonna introduce our two speakers. The first speaker is Steve Belcher. He's gonna talk briefly about kidney disease, kidney function, and kidney treatments. And the second person is Alicia Prezzanchi, who is a registered dietitian. Steve he's a veteran in kidney disease and kidney treatment. He's been in this 33 years. He's a founder and executive director of Urban Kidney Alliance. He got his Bachelor of Science degree in nursing, Master of Science degree in nursing. He has a Master of Science. He worked for Kidney Clinic Consultant, Servar, Foundation Medical Staffing, DaVita Dialysis, Fresenius Medical Care, Independent Dialysis Foundation, Advanced Dialysis Center, and currently he is with the Urban Kidney Alliance, a nonprofit organization. And Steve also wrote a book, How to Survive Outpatient Hemodialysis. So Steve, I'm passing it over to you. Please introduce us to kidney disease, kidney function, and treatment options, and then we'll follow up with Aline. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. And thanks, Ariel, for having me back on. I just have to make one correction. It's 36 years of dialysis. almost close to 40. But yeah. When it comes to kidney disease, we know that there are 4 stages to this disease. The 5th stage being end-stage renal disease, or someone going on dialysis. You have 2 kidneys that weigh about 4 to 6 ounces, about the size of a fist, located on each side of your rib cage. So one on the left, one on the right. And basically, the kidneys are responsible for maintaining a delicate balance of water and certain chemicals known as electrolytes in your body. So, here are the major functions of the normal kidney. One, they remove waste from the blood. Two, they remove excess water from the body. Three, they regulate blood pressure. Four, they control red blood cell production. And five, they regulate bone health, uh, basically the production of vitamin D. And some of the leading causes, well, the main two leading causes of kidney disease and kidney failure are diabetes. However, you do have other disease of the kidney that can lead to kidney failure, such as glomerulonephritis. You got polycystic kidney disease. You got sickle cell. You got lupus, and then you also have to watch out for over-the-counter medication, long-term use of what we call in the nursing field NSAIDs, which stands for steroid anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen, Aleve, and some of those other over-the-counter medication that are what we call nephrotoxic. As Tracy mentioned, you got several treatment options for kidney failure. You got peritoneal dialysis. You got in-center hemodialysis, and then you got home hemodialysis. Also, you have certain treatments that evolve around these dialysis treatment, like um, overnight dialysis, where someone comes in the clinic and they're on the machine 6 to 8 hours during the night, getting slow treatment, getting fluid poured off slowly. And in fact, when you're doing home dialysis, you can do that type of treatment as well, up to, I say, 4 to 6 hours, several times a week to get a better clearance.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. So, Aline, our next speaker is Alicia Prezzanchi, is a registered dietitian. She got her degree in a registered. She became a registered dietitian in 2007. She joined DaVita Dialysis Center. She got her master's degree in science in 2010. She's been in this field for more than 14 years. She creates educational programs for people with kidney disease at all stages. She manages multiple clinics and home programs. And recently, she joined Outset Medical, the maker of tablet dialysis machines. Aline, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So please tell us more about healthy kidney diet. What would be considered healthy kidney diet, and what are your recommendations from your practice working with the different patients?
Great. Thank you so much, Ariel, for introducing me, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. So, as Ariel mentioned, I have quite a bit of years under my belt working as a registered dietitian, working with patients, typically in the stages of 3 to 4, and then leading to end-stage renal disease on dialysis. So, throughout the time, I had the opportunity to educate a lot of folks, implement a lot of community programs as well, which was a great outreach program where we were able to teach folks in the community about just kidney disease, even those folks that were not technically, that had chronic kidney disease, basically attended these courses. So it's been a great pleasure working with, with patients and being able to educate them and see how well they do when they truly do follow a diet. So to specify in regards to what does a diet look like? So typically patients that have chronic kidney disease, there's different stages as Steve mentioned. So typically when we're looking at stages 1 and 2, we typically focus on just managing the individual's disease state. So let's say the patient has high blood pressure or the patient has diabetes. The key is here to ensure that the blood pressure and the diabetes is under control. That means we're eliminating excess salt in a person's diet, or if a patient is hypertensive or has high blood pressure. If an individual has diabetes, that individual would basically limit the amount of carbohydrates and do portion control, along with use of medication. So it's super critical to look at the diet, especially in the beginning stages, how critical that is, especially with stage 1 and 2. So again, just to focus on that area, super critical to diabetes or high blood pressure. Along with that, weight management. It's also a good idea to limit the amount of red meat. Also, if an individual has high cholesterol, to try to lower the cholesterol by limiting high dairy food, such as like whole milk. Choosing non-fat would be a better option. And then also lowering the inflammation. So limiting like fast food restaurants. A lot of these fast food restaurants are super, um, convenient and super inexpensive, but yet they're not the best quality of food. So we would try to choose a lot more foods such as fruits and vegetables and legumes, which would be beans, lentils. In addition to stages of 1 and 2, we would want to add a little bit more fiber into the diet. So whole grain foods is what we would choose. Rather than having white rice, we would want to choose brown rice. If we're eating white bread, we would want to choose whole grain foods. So again, super critical to monitor that as well. Then going um, into stages 3 and 4, what we'd want to focus on specifically with stage 3, again, continuing to monitor their diabetes, continuing to monitor their high blood pressure. In addition to that, we would want to start to monitor their potassium and phosphorus. So what that means is that there's a lot of foods that contain a lot of potassium. And potassium is typically found in bananas, oranges, tomatoes, honeydew lemon. So a lot of those specific types of foods have a lot of potassium, and it's critical to start slowly to monitor and minimize the amount of consumption of potassium foods or high potassium foods. Other foods that we would want to start looking at would be phosphorus. Phosphorus is also found in meats. So, as we said, meat is, we would want to start limiting the amount of red meat. But when we're starting to look at stages 3 and 4, we would want to start minimizing the amount of protein consumption. So, we don't want to consume too much protein, such as red meats. It would be ideal to limit that to about 6 to 9 ounces a day, and try to add a little bit more legumes like the beans and lentils, so that it doesn't give too much pressure on the kidney. The key is when you're in chronic kidney disease, you want to preserve your kidneys. And what that specifically means is that you want to start to limit the amount of salt along with a lot of excess protein in the diet. As I mentioned, as far as potassium phosphorus, we would continue to monitor that in stage 4. But again, stages 3 and 4, we want to be super critical of, again, monitoring our cholesterol, diabetes, and high blood pressure. Again, monitoring our sodium intake, so not excess amounts of salt. And it would be a good idea to start using water soluble vitamins. So that would be our vitamin C and vitamin B vitamins. Those would be typical vitamins that would be actually prescribed when an individual is on dialysis. So what that means is that any water soluble vitamin would be sufficient to consume at least one a day. In addition to that, we want to ensure that if the individual is using over-the-counter vitamins, like vitamin A and D, we start to basically recommend not to use over-the-counter vitamin A and D vitamins, because those specific vitamins that are fat soluble is a little bit more difficult for the kidney to absorb and eliminate. So again, key takeaways for stages 1 and 2 is to maintain your specific diet. Try to eliminate excess salt. If the individual has high cholesterol, try to limit excess amounts of high fatty foods. Eliminate excess amounts of eating out would be super critical as well, along with excess salt. Now, going back to stage 3, as I mentioned, we want to start looking at potassium and phosphorus, and I'll show you all in the next several slides where we will be talking about specific foods that would be appropriate for an individual to start eating when they're at stage 3, 4, and then leading to take specific vitamins. They would be able to take vitamins there. And then moving on to stage 4, again, we want to continue to minimize the excess amount of protein. So that would be the red meats. It would be best to do a little bit more of lean meats, as I mentioned earlier. So turkey, chicken breast would be good. We would want to not consume too much. As I mentioned already, about 6 to 9 ounces is typical. Or about 0.6 grams per kilogram. And that basically adds up to an individual's specific weight. So we would just convert that into kilograms, and then you would be able to know how much protein you'll be able to consume. And then again, with stage 4, very similar to stage 3, we would want to be hypersensitive with potassium and phosphorus. We would want to make sure that we're selecting low potassium fruits and vegetables. And then as far as phosphorus is concerned, we would want to continue to monitor the high phosphorus foods as well. Again, I'll be speaking to that on the next several slides. Again, we would want to monitor our cholesterol, our diabetes, and our high blood pressure. And then we would also continue to monitor our parathyroid hormone to prevent further bone disease. And then if the individual progresses to end-stage renal disease, which would be basically stage 5, that individual would have to be on a specific diet, and that individual is typically on dialysis. As Tracy and Steve mentioned, there's different modalities that one could choose, from in-center hemodialysis to home hemodialysis, along with peritoneal dialysis and or receiving a transplant. So once an individual is at stage 5, they would have to be monitoring their potassium very regularly. Again, continuing to monitor a low potassium diet. Along with that, they would typically take what's called binders, and that binders would be typically given at mealtime to absorb the phosphorus in the foods that the person is consuming. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about those specific foods that are low in phosphorus. In addition to that, that individual would continue to take their vitamins, their water-soluble vitamins. So once an individual is on dialysis, typically they would be prescribed an over-the-counter vitamin. In addition to that, we talked about the bone health, how critical that is. So taking vitamin D would be something as well that would be addressed. And then going down to, if we could project the slide, please, on foods high in potassium, we could focus on that a little bit. And basically, the specific foods that would be high in potassium would be avocados, bananas, cantaloupe, dried fruits, honeydew, kiwi, mangoes, oranges, orange juice, papaya, and prune juice. And then looking at specifically for vegetables, artichoke, dried beans, and peas. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that stages 3 and 4, trying to eliminate too much red meat would be a good option. And then adding beans would be fine here as well. If the individual is vegan or is vegetarian, they would be able to substitute the meat protein or animal protein and choose the beans and peas. So the list will go on to pumpkins and potatoes like French fries, spinach, sweet potatoes, tomato sauce, and vegetable juices and winter squash. And then high potassium would also include ice cream, milk, and yogurt, chocolate, molasses, salt substitutes, and seeds and nuts. So those are typically very high in potassium. It does not mean you cannot have it at all. It means that if you have a controlled, moderate diet, you would be able to enjoy these, but everything in moderation. Super critical to continue to monitor with your in-center or home dietitian to ensure that your lab values are within normal range. And if you are craving a banana or have craving for some tomato soup, it would be critical to make sure that, you know, your labs are within the normal range that you would be able to enjoy those specific foods that you've been craving. Those would be specifically for high potassium. And then looking at foods that we could enjoy, we always want to eat things that are good for us, right? So we want to eat apples and apples, berries, fruit cocktail, grapes, lemon, peach, canned pears. Would be good. Canned pineapple and plums, and a moderation of watermelon. Again, everything does have potassium. It's just a matter of how much we're consuming. Moving down to the vegetables, we have carrots and cabbage and cauliflower. Those would be all okay. Typically, the recommendation for low potassium would be about 2 to 5 servings a day, and a serving being about half a cup to 1 cup. It just matters what you're consuming. So if you're going to be eating watermelon, we would want to say no more than half a cup. If you want a little bit more, no problem. But again, you just want to make sure that you're being mindful and your everything is in moderation. Looking at dairy substitutes, we have our non-dairy creamers and non-dairy whipped cream. Those would all be okay. Rice milk would be also fine, as long as it's not enriched. Just plain old rice milk would be fine as well. Snacks, there are a variety of snacks that you can enjoy: popcorn, unsalted, pretzels, unsalted, red licorice, some hard candies, and jelly beans would all be good options for low potassium choices. And then moving on to foods that are high in phosphorus. So, as we mentioned earlier, animal sources have lots of phosphorus. Again, the key is moderation, but things that we could basically start to minimize or eliminate per se, in moderation, if we may, is convenient foods, restaurant meals, gas station foods. Those typically have lots of phosphorus because they are processed. Anything that's processed and comes in a package, or we find that a fast food restaurant has phosphorus or phosphate is used as a preservative. So there's a lot of phosphate added to these specific foods to preserve the food. So again,
Aileen,
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question?
sure.
Um, can you have oat milk? Because you
Oat milk.
mentioned rice, oat
Yes.
milk. You
Oat is a grain, so it does have quite a bit of phosphorus. But
mm,
if one wants to enjoy their oat milk, they could have about half a cup. But just make sure to look at the label to make sure that it's low in potassium as well, and a lower source of phosphorus.
okay, and then too, there was a question. So if the producer could go back, someone Matcha Margarita, she says she asked, why isn't potassium slash diet the first treatment for hypertension? Because so many BP meds are potassium depleting and lead straight to kidney failure. So can you or Steve answer that?
Sure. Steve, do you want to take that?
I mean, that sounds like a dietitian question because, why isn't potassium diet the first treatment for hypertension? We all know in Western medicine, that hypertension medication is going to be the first treatment to reduce the pressure, but diet and exercise and reduction of sodium is another. I never heard of a potassium diet being the first treatment for hypertension patients.
Yeah, just to speak to that. So some of the medications, thank you for that, Steve. Some of the medications are potassium sparing. So
Hmm.
that means that you will be depleting or losing some potassium and using some diuretics that will be depleting the potassium. So yes, they would be typically monitoring your potassium if you're on specific diuretics to ensure that you don't have that basically below the amount of normal low potassium. So, meaning called hypokalemia. So, what that means is that typically the first line of defense for hypertension is definitely lifestyle change. So that means where if the individual could, incorporate exercise, healthy eating, low sodium diet, would be the first three things that we would look at for hypertensive patients, and also weight loss. So that would be also critical as well. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but feel free to ask further.
Right.
Um,
And I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Tracy. Let me just add something to what Aileen's just said, because when you're talking about the potassium sparing um, medication, normally doctors normally order a potassium supplement to compensate for that if that's happening. So I just wanted to add that.
Right. And I just want to make a comment, and then we have another question. This is the reason why it is so important for people to be in the know of their health. They need to know what their blood pressure is. They need to know of their sugar levels. They need to know their family history. Even though that the doctors went to school and they're the expert, but you're the expert on your body, and you need to know what your levels are so that you could get the best care. Because to be honest with you, I didn't even know that, like, all these years about blood pressure medicine depleting potassium. So possibly if I knew that earlier on, because I've been struggling with high blood pressure for a long period of time, maybe that's a conversation that I would have had with my doctor. So
Right.
it's very important for people to know their status, and don't rely on the doctor to tell you X, Y, and Z. You could challenge. You could challenge the doctor. Educate
Well,
yourself.
Tracy,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted
let me just say this, Tracy. When it comes to blood pressure medication, you have a lot of classification of medication. So when it comes to high blood pressure, so you may not get one person may not get that particular medication that has that potassium sparing
Mm-hmm.
component in it, or you may. So it's not every blood pressure medication that does that. It's just certain classifications of the medication,
Right. And again, to
like
my
your
point,
diuretics.
right. And to my point, that we people need to educate themselves so they know. Just don't, when the doctor gives you medication, just don't take it. Ask questions, research it. And once you
Oh,
start
absolutely.
researching it, then you're just like, you know what? I don't know. Because I've done that to my doctor quite a few times. He had prescribed something. I researched it, and I was like, there were various reasons why I didn't want to take it, and then he gave me something else. So just I just want to keep on reminding people just to be in the know. But we do have another question from Bridget Hill Darby, and she says, "What about plant based diet for kidney disease, which she is on now, and she's in stage 3?"
Great question. Thank you. So plant-based diet is just fine. You just want to make sure you are consuming the right amount of protein. So you're consuming, lentils and beans would be just fine for your diet. If you're choosing soy products, be mindful not to consume too much soy, because the soy beverages have quite a bit of phosphorus. Fresher foods would be better. So if you're going to buy some dried beans and boil them yourself, and mix them up to your diet, your other disease states, if any. If there's weight loss that needs to be incorporated, weight loss along with that, and regularly following up with your primary nephrologist.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know Steve is getting ready to go soon. So Steve, would you like to share the viewers your book that
Well, we
you
still got
you wrote?
time.
Okay, I didn't want to leave you
Yeah, yeah,
hanging.
10, 15. But
Okay.
I will. But one thing I wanted to ask Eileen about, that a lot of patients have kind of difficulty in, is transitioning once they're at stage 5 and they get ready to go into dialysis. As Eileen mentioned, they want you to decrease your protein intake. But once you cross over and get on dialysis, now they want you to increase your protein intake, and a lot of patients have a hard time increasing their protein intake because of whatever problems from the kidney disease, whether it's lack of appetite, fatigue, uh, nausea, vomiting, or any other symptoms they may have. Kidney failure is that once they get on dialysis, now the issue is increasing the protein intake, your albumin level, because you're almost at your sickest stage. And if you're in a hospital and you're not eating or increasing your appetite, ingesting that protein, it's going to cause you to continue not to feel at your best. If Eileen can kind of touch on that a little bit, that would be awesome.
Great, thank you. Yeah, let me I mentioned that earlier, but again, I'll mention that again. As far as stages 3 and 4, we do want to start eliminating or minimizing the consumption of protein. So that means that what we talk about, zero point 0.6 grams per kilogram to 0.8 grams per kilogram. Again, we're consuming about anywhere between 6 to 9 grams or 6 to 9 ounces of protein if it's animal sources, and if we're consuming lentils or legumes, we will be able to enjoy about 1 or 2 cups or more, a little bit more would be fine, at stages 3 and 4. The goal is we don't want to put too much pressure on our kidneys because protein is quite hard for our kidneys to digest and excrete the waste. So what that means is that the kidneys are working harder to basically eliminate that waste from the protein, especially animal protein. So the goal is with stages 3 and 4, we would want to minimize the consumption of that. But once you cross over, as Steve mentioned, into end-stage renal disease and you are on dialysis, very critical to increase your protein consumption. Very common concern from patients that are on dialysis. Well, they told me before I don't need to eat this much protein. Yes, that was true on stages 3 and 4. But once you come into dialysis, you're having treatment every other day or several times a week, and you're basically losing quite a bit of protein. So you need to consume more protein. Every meal, about 3 to 4 ounces of protein at every single meal to increase your albumin. And albumin is a measure that we check to see how much protein stores that you have in your body. There's different types of testing for that as well, like pre-albumin as well. But we specifically look at albumin to ensure that the individual is eating well. That's also a marker of malnutrition as well, to ensure that the individual is consuming well amounts of calories and also protein. So those of you that are on dialysis, ensure that your dietitian comes and tells you that you're not at 4.0, you're at 3.6. That's just a lab value, and you need to consume more. There's also alternatives to increasing albumin as well. There's protein supplements an individual could take while they're on dialysis, like Nutro or Insure Plus, that has higher protein. So there's different options as well. So please consult with your dietitian and nephrologist, those of you that are on dialysis. There's also protein shots that are called liquid cell, and there's different ones in the market. Those are also very good sources of protein as well. That would be used typically in an in-center setting. So those individuals are actually now receiving dialysis. Okay. So I could pause there to answer any questions, but I do have a few more slides I wanted to talk about high phosphorus foods, if I may. So high phosphorus foods, Tracy, did you have a question?
You know what? I just want to get to one of the viewers and CH Seaton. They said for kidney health, eat a fresh apple instead of a donut, a sweet pastry. Grab a fresh salad with apple cider vinegar dressing. So that's a comment from one of the viewers.
Very good. Great choices there. Just going on to high phosphorus foods, because this is very common questions that we get, especially in stages 3 and 4 when they have to start controlling their phosphorus. High phosphorus foods would be like the milk, yogurt, soy milk. I remember somebody just recently asked about a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet. So soy milk is also a high phosphorus um, uh, food. So we want to be mindful of how much we're consuming. There are different brands out there, so it's really critical to look at the nutrition fact label to see how much phosphorus the item has. The other piece would be processed cheese and cheese breads, super high in phosphorus. Fat free cream cheese or sour cream, again high in phosphorus. Ice cream or frozen yogurt. Quick breads, anything out of a box, very high in phosphorus. If you could bake your, let's say, if you want to make some pancakes or some waffles, if you can make it from scratch, that would be ideal because those would have less amount of phosphorus. So fresher, the better. Homemade, old-fashioned way is typically the best way. Processed meats such as bacon and bologna, chicken nuggets, ham, hot dogs, those would also be higher sources of phosphorus, along with chocolate, drinks, and candy bars. And also colas and pepper style sodas. So those would be basically like the Dr. Pepper, colas, those would be typically high in phosphorus. Again, a key takeaway is read your nutrition labels. When you're at the market, look to see the phosphorus content. The lower amount, the better it is. But colas is something super simple to stay away from so that we could start controlling your phosphorus. Low phosphorus foods would be basically some good cheeses would be like Swiss cheese, cheddar, mozzarella cheese would be a low source of phosphorus. Regular or low fat cream cheese would be a better choice. If you notice on the last slide, it showed that high phosphorus regular or non-fat cream cheese, those would be a bit more and higher in phosphorus because they have preservatives. They have fillers. So a low-fat or regular cream cheese would be a better choice. So non-fat would not be the best choice here. Sherbet, sorbet, and frozen fruit pops would be a good choice for low phosphorus. Fresh dinner rolls, bread, and bagels, either English muffins would be good. And then lemon lime soda, ginger ale, and root beer would be also good choices for low phosphorus. So the key takeaway here would be unenriched almond milk or rice milk, oat milk in moderation would be fine. Soy milk, not the best option. And then regular cream cheese and sour cream would be good. And then lemon lime soda such as Sprite and 7 Up, ginger ales would be good. So again, just basic information about the kidney diet on the last slide, please. You want to limit your intake to about 32 fluid ounces once an individual is on dialysis. You want to limit your sodium intake. You want to take binders if prescribed. You want to take your calcium mimic medication if prescribed as well. Those would be specifically important for bone health. Again, we talked about a lot about water soluble vitamins, so you should take that along with vitamin D. Nutrition truly is the key to managing kidney disease and overall health. So very critical for those of you that have kidney disease. Please monitor your intake, monitor your diet. Definitely try to consult with the dietitian. They will give you a lot of good information to help you preserve your. I'll stop there for any additional questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eileen. I just wanted to add, as a dialysis patient, 2 times over, what I have learned that when I first was on dialysis, I lost my appetite completely. Like I went down to a size 2 for, and I kept that on for about maybe 3 years. That I would suggest that people look at food as medicine, especially people who first go on dialysis. The whole body is changing. They have to, adjust and they lose their appetite. But please eat because that's going to give you the strength, and just see if the doctor tells you to take your BP meds twice a day, you're going to take it twice a day. So that means that just eat a little bit of something. It might not be a lot, but at least it could, feed your body the nutrition that it needs to help you get through it. And then two, that your dietitian should be your best friend. That even though that there are a lot of foods that stage five people who are in kidney or doing dialysis, they can't eat. But based on their numbers, if you have a relationship with your dietitian and they explain to everything that what your numbers mean, you might be able to cheat a little bit more. Not a lot, but if the only way that you're going to do that is to communicate with your dietitian, because I know that I do. Because I know that I just made some chicken and gravy and I put a little bit of tomato in it, even though tomatoes high in potassium. But because of my numbers, I'm allowed to do that. And then Rosalind Seaman, I'm sorry, Samond, he says download free renal diet cookbook for beginners 2020. Only low sodium, low potassium, and low phosphorus.
Healthy recipes
Yeah, healthy recipes.
to
Very
control your
good.
kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. Yes. So Aline, I also the great comments from Tracy. Obviously, Tracy, it's a Tracy knows so much. Has been through so many ups and downs and battles with the kidney disease. So awesome, awesome feedback. Aline, I have a question. So for somebody like myself, like how do people who don't really have don't know they have a kidney disease, and we know statistics is I believe 90% of people who are in stage 1 through 3rd don't even know they have kidney disease.
Mhm.
So how do those people need to approach and I understand like essentially the concept of what you were offering describing today is really people should eat healthier. They should choose natural products, natural, like choose apple versus eating a candy. I mean, it's kind of common sense, and we are bombarded with a lot of foods that are kind of enticing, donuts and other stuff, highly processed foods. We should kind of intuitively feel we should kind of gravitate towards more natural stuff. But for somebody like myself, like I don't have kidney disease, and how would you recommend people to go around? Do they should they look around and look for a dietitian to test those numbers, test creatinine, and test some other things that were on some of your slides? Like, what do you recommend for people who possibly may have, who possibly should be looking at this, but they have no idea they even like should go around and ask these kind of questions?
Sure, great question, Ariel. So the key is, to definitely follow up with your primary. They say recommendation is at least once a year for all ages, and if needed, to regularly follow up with your other physicians if you do have other pre-existing conditions. So your primary physician doing a basic panel, doing the CBC, doing specific panels, they will be able to identify um, if there is an incident of chronic kidney disease. So that's a marker, and also monitoring your own lab values and monitoring your own self, and feeling as Tracy said, you're your biggest advocate. So yes, definitely seeing your primary physician, doing regular lab tests for you to be able to assess those numbers, looking at your own trends and seeing how your creatinine is and how your
Mhm.
GFR is. Those are very good markers for you to identify and see how the individual is doing overall with their kidney health. Again, I cannot stress enough, healthy diet and moderation is the key to success in nutrition. So truly making good choices on a daily basis. I know we all work, we sit in traffic, we go from point A to point B and takes about extra 40 minutes for us to get there, at least in LA. And it's easy to stop at Jack in the Box and pick up a meal and just
Mhm.
skip the time to go home and prepare a fresh meal. That's not the key. The key is for us to, be mindful. Our body is we need to fuel our body with the right food. And again, it's very common sense, to be quite honest, but sometimes we need that reminder. And unfortunately, that reminder is a little too late for some folks when they're already progressing aggressively towards like kidney disease. If they are already at stage 4 and they have few percentage, but that's okay. You could still control your kidney function to a great level And I could only say from experience, we had one individual for years was at stage 3, and slowly after 5, 6 years led to stage 4. And it just that's because they truly watch their diet, they monitor their blood pressure, they monitor their diabetes. So truly following up with your primary, seeing a dietitian if you do have consequences. Those would be key takeaways from here.
Thank you.
Oh, Ariel, if I may add, you mentioned a percentage in the beginning. You said people have not. What did you say about
So the very
stage
low
one?
percentage of people at the early stages of the disease know they have it. So
Right.
yeah, very low percentage of people who have early stages 1 through 3 actually know about this. So the question is, like, if, I mean, it could be me, I mean, it could be anybody essentially, right?
Right.
So what should those people do, like, what kind of questions they should be asking? And Aline gave a very very good answer, comprehensive answer.
Hmm.
What should be the starting questions?
But what I wanted to add to that is that unfortunately, 9 out of 10 people have stage 3 kidney disease and don't even know it. And getting to that diet, uh, and this is just the truth, is that minorities are at greater risk for getting this disease. And as we know, you have a lot of minorities that live in uh, what we call food desert communities, where there isn't any healthy eating in these neighborhoods. They're saturated with fast food restaurants, pawn shop, liquor stores, and renal dialysis clinics. So there needs to be a lot more education centered in these communities that are targeted by these large dialysis organizations.
Yeah, it's a good comment. So, but Steve, what do you see on the ground? I know you work with the urban communities. Do you see large dialysis companies actually invest money into education in terms of, like, healthy eating? What do you see?
Well, Ariel, what I see is, to be frankly honest, right now, I see a shortage of staffing in a lot of these big units, shortage of nurses and technicians because of the high rates of people coming on dialysis. So the education they may get is going to be from someone like Eileen, a dietitian that's able to go around and talk to the patients, or some of the staff when they have time to sit down and do education. But now you don't really have that time to sit down because dialysis is a fast paced process where by the time you sit down after you put your patients on, it's almost time to get ready to start taking patients off. So there's little time in the facility to actually really sit down and educate patients. So, and that was the reason when Tracy brought up about my book, that was the reason for me writing this book, How to Survive Outpatient Hemodialysis, a guide for patients with kidney failure. Because the sooner a person who's diagnosed with kidney failure, once they're in that hospital, because they didn't know that they had kidney failure. I'm talking about the patients who find out when they go to the hospital that they went through the whole stages and really didn't know they had kidney disease. Now they exhibiting all these symptoms. They go to the emergency room. Now they hit with the diagnosis of your kidneys failed. And so between that point and the time they are discharged to go to an outpatient dialysis facility, there's no education. That's why patients don't know about other treatment options when they get out the hospital. They just know about outpatient dialysis. They don't know about transplant. They don't know about peritoneal dialysis. They don't know a lot of things because this is their new normal. So, what this book will do 12 chapters is go through, soon as the patient hits the front door of that facility, it guides them, it navigates that patient through what they're going to experience at that dialysis facility. What is chronic kidney failure? The introduction to hemodialysis, the first day at outpatient, patients' rights and
Yep.
responsibilities, and understanding grieving process. That's just some of the uh, chapter titles that I have in this book. And to end it off, chapter 12 goes into coronavirus and kidney disease. And then we have some information in the back of small organizations that are making huge. These smaller organizations aren't getting a lot of a lot of notice, and so patients, they see these big organizations and they subscribe or get the information from there. But there are also smaller organizations out here that can help. You
So,
have, I mean,
Steve, can
I'm
you
sorry, go
remind
ahead.
Steve? Can you remind people where people get what is the best way to get your book?
They can go to my website at www.stephenlbelcher.com. That's the best way to get the book.
Okay, great. And also, just want to mention to our audience, alternative way is to get it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. You can get a digital version. You can even get an audio version. If you use Amazon Alexa, Alexa can actually read it back to you, the book. So it's a great book. It's a great read. It's a very fast read. For anybody who is facing dialysis, dialysis is or starting dialysis is a very stressful moment in their life where they just realize they have some major issue with their health. I do recommend this book. I read it myself. So Steve, thank you for bringing this up. And we have a comment from Pines.org. They say, does a high protein diet greater than 1.4 gram of protein per kilogram lead to high mortality in people with normal kidney function, meaning most athletes? And the commentator says no, but people with impaired kidney function should limit their protein intake. And they gave a hashtag American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, March 2021. So interesting.
I could comment there. So an individual to what they commented, in reference to an individual that has impaired kidney function and they consume excess amounts of protein, yes, it will deplete their remaining kidney function to some extent. So that's why it's critical to limit the amount of protein that they're actually consuming while if they do have chronic kidney disease. Those individuals that are consuming higher amounts of protein, super critical to, such as our athletes, super critical to consume a lot of water. That's very important to basically kind of flush out the excess amount of protein. But again, those individuals that consume quite a bit of protein need to, be assessed a little bit more regularly as well.
Okay, Steve. So somebody asked again this question: how do you buy this book? You already mentioned it's StephenLBelcher.com, or people can get it on Amazon.
Right, Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I'm not sure if this young lady is overseas or United States. I mean, she's overseas. She would probably have to get it from Amazon International or whatever country she's in. But here in the United States, she can get it from Amazon or go to my website, StephenLBelcher.com.
Great. Aline, I have another question for you. So normal diet is 2,000 calories for different stages of kidney disease. Are we talking about the same number of calories? Are we talking about maintaining the weights or reducing the weights to reduce BMI index? Like, what do you normally recommend to your patients?
So the 2000 is just a blanket number. 2000 is what's recommended for the average individual. We have folks that may need to consume it a little bit more or a little bit less. So with that said, if an individual is overweight and they need to reduce their BMI, yes, that we need to cut down their caloric intake to promote weight loss, along with a healthy diet to basically maintain their kidney function. Those individuals that are in center or when on dialysis, on PD or home hemodialysis, those individuals would typically recommendation would be to maintain their weight. But if they were, needing to have weight loss for transplant and such, yes, definitely we would decrease their intake as well. So it does vary. There isn't a blanket number per se. It's very critical to follow up with the dietitian and your nephrologist to see if it's encouraged for weight loss and decrease caloric.
So is there any weight where you would recommend person actually eat more just to make sure people don't get below a certain weight? Is there any, or BMI index? Do you have any recommendation for that?
Yeah, if their BMI is low and they're malnourished, and our indicators are showing that the individual is malnourished, specifically, we see this in stages 4, progressing to stage 5. Patients coming in have a lot of weight loss, as Tracy mentioned, being a size 2 for many years or of extended period of time, did not have an appetite. Yes, at that point, we would encourage excess amount of food. So that would mean basically taking more additional supplements, such as protein supplements, and just increasing the caloric intake daily.
There is Janet Martha Musa. She said, African diet, healthy or not. We eat rice, fufu. Fufu is a form like farina, and it's making, it's like a fufu,
A dough.
yeah, like a dough, right? Meat, vegetables on a daily basis. How can we fix this? What's your advice for us?
Great question. So again, everything in moderation is okay. If you're eating too much of your red meats, we will want to eliminate that. Typically, the recommendation is about 3 ounces, 3 to 6 ounces once a week. So if you could eliminate the excess amount of red meat, that would be ideal. Replenish that with some fish, some fresh fish, wild caught fish would be ideal. Lean meat such as chicken breast, turkey would be also great options. Also, adding some beans, rice, and lentils would also be a very good option. So those would be all good options to basically add into. Rice is not is good, is okay. Again, in moderation. If you can use whole grain, would be ideal. If you want to do ground rice, that would be also well. Other tips would be not to fry too much. Try to bake or barbecue to eliminate extra consumption of calories from frying.
Yeah, Aline, sometimes your voice gets slower a little bit. So yes, thank you. And
Oh,
Janet just put in the comments. She just put actually Stephen L. Belcher website. So if somebody still has a question, they can find Steve website right there in the comments.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. So I know we had a lot of information, Aline and Steve. Great feedback. Thank you for your talking about kidney disease, kidney treatment, and very important about kidney diet, because diet is a kind of fundamental piece of this whole discussion. Is that really diet is what can make it or can break it. So, but now I want to transition to Tracy had some information about her favorite dishes. So she's been so many years in battling the kidney disease. So Tracy, please take it away. Tell us more about your diet.
Probably is not as good as it should be, but like I said, that I could cheat a little bit because my numbers are pretty good. This is what I prepared tonight, and it's just cucumbers and a little bit of onion, carrots, and feta cheese. Cheese I know has a lot of potassium, but I only put like a tablespoon, and some Italian dressing. And then the next dish, it doesn't. I was going to say it doesn't look really appetizing, but it was good to me. But it's cabbage, the white and the red cabbage, a little bit of kibasi. I didn't use a lot, and some onions, and I season it well. I know people who are on dialysis have to watch their water retention. That means that you have to watch your sodium intake. So I learned to use like Miss Dash on a lot of my food, a lot of garlic, a lot of other seasonings, so I won't use a lot of salt. So it's just that you just have to balance it out, um, and just know what you can and can't eat. And the most important thing is to take your binders with every meal. Sometimes I forget, and then my dialysis nurse says, Tracy, your phosphorus is a little bit up. And I was like, I know, because I forgot my binders. So that's very, very important. Sometimes people get really depressed because they feel that they can't eat the foods that they used to enjoy. But again, throughout the night, Aileen repeatedly said in moderation. And then especially with like potatoes, if you leach them, if you boil them for about 10 minutes, you rinse them, you do it another time. You could reduce the potassium. Thanksgiving, the holidays are coming up or whatever. Just plan your meals, and you could still enjoy what everybody else is eating. Is just moderation. Maybe you have to cook it a little bit different, but you don't have to be miserable on dialysis when you are restricted with certain foods. You just have to know the substitutes and go that extra mile just to educate yourself.
So Tracy, if people want to contact you to ask more about your dishes, how can they get in touch with you? Do you have like a social presence? Where can people can find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and people could contact me, amaditracy@gmail.com. And I just wanted to share, I don't know if there's a gentleman called, I met him, his name is George Martin. And I met him through one of the groups that I'm in. He's in South Carolina. He did a recipe book of about maybe 40 to 50 recipes that are kidney friendly, very easy to prepare. So I just wanted to thank him because I have used some of his recipes and it's really good. And if anyone is interested, it will be free. I have no problem sending it to you. And I don't know if the producer has some of those recipes he could just show. No, okay. No, there's no he doesn't have the recipes available, but if you want the recipe book, I would love to send it to you. amaditracy@gmail.com.
And Tracy, you also on other social medias, right? You on a Clubhouse and you on
yes, I started
on Facebook, right?
Yeah, Clubhouse and Facebook.
Okay.
And then very exciting news that my transplant coordinator told me that after I finish doing all my testing, which will be done next week, that I will have a good chance of getting called relatively soon. So I just asked people to send positive vibes so I could get a transplanted kidney sooner than later.
Yes, that's great. That's a great news. And Janice, thanks so much for the advice. Yeah, it was a lot of great information. Thank you to everybody, Aline, Steve. Thank you, Tracy, and Aline. If people want to get in touch with you, are you on the social media? Can they, if they want to have questions, if they want to follow up with you, if they like the information you presented today, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Great question. So I do have a site on Instagram. Instagram. It's called Level Up Nutrition by Aline. So you're welcome to follow me there. It's a fairly new site. It's just basically talking about healthy foods, making healthy options, talking about fad diets and such. You're welcome to follow me there. Again, Level Up Nutrition by Aline, or you're able to find me on Facebook as well. I don't have anything related to diet per se on Facebook, but I just have basic my name and last name. If you have any questions, please message me there. But the best place would be on Instagram.
Okay, great. So it was amazing show today. Thank you everybody for commenting. There was one comment somebody posted and we didn't read it. Is that somebody said They were diagnosed with the kidney disease 11 years ago, and they made adjustments to their diet so they could enjoy the little whatever little function they still have in the kidney. And it just speaks to itself that somebody was willing to kind of sacrifice, and I assume probably get rid of the donuts and some other highly processed food so they could actually enjoy comfortable life where they don't have to go through dialysis. So it just, sometimes you have to choose what's important for you, and that specific person chose to let go the highly processed foods so they could really enjoy life without dialysis. So that's also amazing comment. So again, thank you everybody. I'm sure we're gonna have more shows coming up on the kidney diet. I think we especially recipes from Tracy and hopefully from George Martin and some other ones. We could share more of those recipes, and I think this will be very helpful. And there was a nice time spending with you, Aline and Steve and Tracy. Thank you for being here today. Again, please check out some other shows we did in the past several months ago. Tracy mentioned them at the beginning of the show. We spent time with Steve and Tracy talking about kidney function, kidney treatments. We went more in depth on those, so please check out those shows. And thank you. Have a good night, and look forward to meeting you again here on Sierra Cast TV.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. That was awesome.